If you've ever seen an ad for making money with 3D printing, it's likely that they're promoting something like selling your own 3D models online, or recommending that you turn your garage into a print farm with margins returning pennies on the dollar. And while these opportunities do work for some people, it does admittedly become a second job, competing in an already saturated online market. And this is where I come in, because this last year, I started what I call a 3D print design club, where instead of bringing your kid to an after-school club that they hate, I run a class where each week these kids get to create a design according to a brief and then take home a functional 3D printed version the next week. And what's so different about this is that instead of trying to compete against the rest of the internet, you are creating demand and supply for something new in your local area. And since this is a reoccurring class, you have the opportunity to price yourself in a way that allows for a predictable and stable income, which is just one of the perks of running these classes. Now, before I dive into the finances, let me explain what exactly happens in a 3D print design class. Because each week I set up a room with anywhere between 8 and 20 kids, with some extra parents present, and I get them to create a design that fits within the rules of that week. For example, I once brought in a fidget spinner that I made from a 3D printed part, and I showed them my original design for the fidget spinner that I'd drawn on a piece of paper. I then brought in a stack of paper for the kids to draw their own designs, and when they picked the one they wanted, I took them home to recreate their sketch on the computer. And the next week, I brought in the finished 3D printed version of their fidget spinner. And let me tell you, I was very popular that week. And it was cool to see the gears spinning in their heads, seeing them thinking through the different design possibilities. But like I said, let's address the finances, because that's what you clicked for. So let's start off with expenses. Assuming you already own a 3D printer and you're looking to run a class one day per week. And let's say you run 2 classes on the same day. If we price things conservatively and say that one room costs you $30 per hour and you get 8 kids in one room, you could charge each of these kids' parents $10, which takes you to $50 per hour of teaching. Although I should point out that this doesn't include the time it takes for you to process the models in the computer or things like travel time. But even with this more conservative approach, you can make $100 with a day's work, which is maybe not livable everywhere, but it is a promising start. So if I were to pick at random a city in the United States, I might get something like Chandler, Arizona. And after some quick Googling, I was able to find 90-minute pottery classes going for $35 a ticket, which is more than triple my original quote of $10. And again, this could vary depending on your location, so you should do your own digging to see what could fit. Now let's say I took our original formula, but instead I just changed the numbers a little. So the room fee is still $30, we have 8 kids, but this time we changed the price from $10 to $15. Now we go from $50 per class up to $90, which if you run 2 classes back to back with the same amount of kids, that will return $180 with 1 day of classes. Now let's say you weren't able to up the price of your class. There are still 2 options, but they do take a little more planning ahead and initial cost. One of these being increasing the amount of kids. Let's say you doubled the amount to 16. Firstly, you'd need an extra parent or 2 to stick around while you run the class if we're following the standard 8-to-1 kids to adult ratio, which if all other factors stay the same, doesn't just double your profit, it goes from $50 to $130 per session. Because remember, the booking fee is not increasing, just the amount of kids. Or if you wanted, you could get a friend involved and split the price of the room booking between the 2 of you, and split the profit at the end, which in this case would give you $65 profit each. Now, another way of increasing your pay would be to host another class, either on a different day of the week or by adding another hour to your schedule. Now, these last 2 are great for more business, but to increase your profit, you have to increase your workload. So if you're able to, it might be worth combining all 3. If you were charging $15 with 16 kids, minus a $30 fee, you'd be looking at $210 per session. Now, if you can teach that without the help of a friend, then that's not too bad, especially if you add the third option of increasing your number of classes. You should also factor in any other costs you may have. Or if you can wrangle a better price on a room booking, who knows, you might be able to get a better deal. But this is the framework I use, and I'll be giving away for free this profit calculator spreadsheet at the end, so stick around for that. But in the meantime, I wanted to explain the impact beyond just making some money on the side. Because in my time teaching an after-school club, I've made some incredible connections. Like the time this one girl came to my class. She was only 5 years old, and her mom basically had to shove her in the room and leave, because she wouldn't let go of her mom. But I got her sat down, and we were making pin badges that week. So I give her some clay, I explain what's up, then I just leave her to it. And about halfway through the lesson, I checked in on her, and she's made this massive face with what looks like 2 eyes and a mustache. So I ask her about it, and she tells me she's made a creeper from Minecraft. So I tell her, I love Minecraft. Now, unfortunately, she spread this portrait very thin, and so she proceeds to peel her clay off of the table, and it just falls apart. And she looked devastated. She looked at me like she just saw a puppy get thrown off a cliff. So I said to her that next week I'd bring her in a Minecraft creeper head as a badge. And at the end of the lesson, she walks out and finds her mom. And I didn't see her for a whole week. But she arrived early the next week. So I take her in and I showed her the creeper I made her. And her face just lit up. But not only that, she grabs me by the thumb because her hands are tiny and she can't grab me by the whole hand. And she pulls me out of the room to go find her mom. And she's like, Mommy, the boy made me a creeper. And this girl was so shy and so reserved just a week before, and I couldn't get a peep out of her. But from that week on, she would not stop yapping, which is just so precious. Then a couple weeks go by, and after one of my classes, the same 5-year-old girl asks me point blank if I want to be her friend. And my heart nearly exploded from how adorable that was. Now, if it isn't the purest thing on this planet, then I don't know what is. There's a great fuel in knowing that you're doing a service that makes a difference for a kid like her, or a dozen other kids for that matter. I've got countless stories like this from doing it myself. And for a lot of these kids, it's a dream to take part in a club like this. And if I can share that dream with you, you can share that dream with someone like them. Anyways, since you've been waiting for it, if you want to check out the profit calculator, you can find it in the description of this video, or in the description of this video, where I show you the logistics of running a single class from start to finish. So if you want to see how it actually works, click here.